quite frankly, earlier on, I would say, you'd get a lot of students say, "Hey, I want to be, if not the next Oprah, then, the next whoever maybe in their market was the big news person." Or in high school, they worked for their student papers or their student radio station or their high school's magazine, and they want to continue that because they have been told, and many of them are really good writers, they want to increase their writing ability and skill. So I think it's a mixed bag, and there's no one size that brings a student, particularly a student at our university, to the field.
All right. That also is very interesting. Now, as a teacher in this field, are there rules that people should be guided by? I mean, are there rules for that guide journalism that people should know of?
um, Finding the truth, and finding the truth in its complexities. Now that's not to say, excuse me, and that's not to say that, um, the truth is also subjective. What is your truth may not be mine. But looking for and trying to expose as much of the facts as possible, and really digging deep to make sure that what you offer in your reports, again, whether it's online or print or audio or video and audio, um, is as factual as possible and presents as many sides of the equation as possible. Now, you can have journalists who are really clear that this is my point of view, this is my perspective, and this is where I'm coming from. And it's always good to know that, okay, that if this is their perspective, then that's what their reports are going to reflect. And that's really more commentary, opinion based writing. But if you're going to follow journalistic practices and standards and try to be as balanced and objective as possible, you want to look at all ends of the story or the issue and then try to present that as holistically as possible.
I can say that that is not a simple work.
Say that again?
I mean, I can see that that is not a simple work. It's not
No,
a simple job.
not at all.
uh,
People, I remember I was working on another series, and it was again for National Public Radio, for NPR. And I was interviewing a gentleman for a series we did on Black sacred music in all its forms. And he said, "Oh man, I would love your job. You just probably sit around and listen to music all day." I'm like, "Okay, well, maybe, no." I wish. But if we're going to tell the story about how this music came about, its cultural importance, any social issues that surround the music and the people who created it or perform it, then it's a lot more detailed than sitting around and just, listening to music. It really does mean digging into archival material, trying to interview not just historians, but the people who created the music, folks who listen to it, and there you have it. But it's really trying to find and to deal with as much information as possible so you can get a broader picture of whatever the issue is. And then it's your job as a journalist, as a writer, as a producer to find out a way to present that in whatever medium and the restrictions that are inherent in that media, that you find a way to deal with that information in that regard.
all right. Now, I'm going to ask your opinion. In your assessment, what make a good journalism?
Actually, everything that I think I said before, but it's really about how the information is gathered, what kind of research goes into the storytelling, and then how that storytelling is presented. You can have someone who has done his or her due diligence about getting into the background of the issue or the topic. But then if they're either not as skilled as possible in terms of the way they put it together, or they're not working, and just about all journalists have to work with an editor or editors who will review their work and say, okay, this is fine, maybe you need to uh, go a little bit more into detail about X, or you didn't provide enough information over here in Z. So, uh, shore that up and do some more digging. But I think that, in terms of journalism that is impactful and that affects the viewer, reader, listener, it has all of that. It has excellent writing that grabs you and keeps you for the duration of whatever the article or the subject is. Um, it has background information so that if you say something, you verify it with um, information from archives or interviews or details that you were able to uncover as a journalist. And so that you're using all of these elements, the research, the writing, the editing, because some people think, oh, you just go out, talk to some people, come back, throw something together, and it's done. No, if it's really going to be quality journalism, it has to involve usually a team of people. Whether you're the primary person who's getting the information and gathering it and putting it together, someone else will then edit it and provide another point of view about what is strong and what is not about that particular piece, and then what you can do to make it the all that it can be. And I can tell you that obviously, journalism that is done well has really positive um, it has a positive impact, or can have a positive impact, in terms of informing the reader, listener, a consumer of that particular piece. And at the same time, it can have a negative impact if you report something and you didn't do your due diligence in terms of making sure that the information was as correct as possible. Then you can do real damage in reporting something that is not correct. And or if it's correct but it's presented in a haphazard kind of way, then people are not going to read it or consume it, and so therefore it's kind of like, what's the point? So I think all of those things come into play.
All right. And all of those things are what you teach students so they can know how to do better journalism, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, what do you love about your job of teaching students about journalism?
I actually love teaching. I never thought that I would. In fact, when I was both in undergrad and graduate school, I didn't think that teaching was going to be my thing. But in grad school, I actually was a teaching assistant. So I assisted a professor in teaching an audio production class, and found that this is kind of cool, but I don't know that I really want to do it. And when I finished grad school, um, I worked as a freelancer. I went back to New York and worked as a reporter for a black newspaper called the City Sun, which was a really fine weekly that really looked at issues in the black community. And I was able to be the arts and entertainment editor for that paper, which meant, again, I was back in my hometown reporting on the arts in all its forms. And I was like in seventh heaven.